Hi, welcome to the Smell Podcast. I'm your host, Katie Boateng. Today, I thought it would be great to catch up on some news stories, things that have been going on recently in the world of smell. So let's get started. Here's our first story. So this article is titled, "The Scent of a Season, Explaining the Aromas of Fall." And it was written on October 19th by Matthew Capucci. Here's the article. With autumn-like weather becoming entrenched over the lower 48, you may catch an extra whiff of something in the air. As it turns out, you can actually smell the change of seasons. Many people report a particular scent appearing around this time of year. Some describe it as melancholy, while others associate it with more pleasant harvest-type smells. The scent of autumn can be as much an emotional shift as it is a herald of the waning daylight. Whatever you feel when fall rushes in, odds are smell has a surprisingly big role in it. After all, olfaction is more closely linked to memory than any other sense. But where does this smell come from? No, it's not just a cloud of pumpkin spice wafting in the breeze. Instead, it has a unique scientific explanation. As the day shortens and incident solar radiation shrinks, trees and other vegetation begin to prepare for winter. But unlike mammals, they don't grow a winter coat, they shed their extra layers. Leaves are designed to produce food for the plant, glucose, through the process of photosynthesis. They take in 6 carbon dioxide and 6 water molecules at a time and, with a bit of sunlight, reshuffle them to form glucose and 6 oxygen molecules. That's why plants are said to purify the air. They add breathable oxygen to it. But even though this reaction produces energy for the plant, it takes a lot of work to sustain. In the fall, when the energy needed to create the food outweighs the energy afforded to the plant by the food itself, the leaves are no longer needed, and with that, the tree bids them farewell. When the leaves fall, they die. As they take their last breath, they exhale all sorts of gases through tiny holes known as stomata. Among these compounds released are terpene and isoprenoids, common ingredients in the oils that coat plants. Terpenes are hydrocarbons, meaning their main ingredients are hydrogen and carbon. Pinene, a species of terpene, smells like, you guessed it, pine. It's a main ingredient to the sap-like resin that repairs the bark of conifers and pine trees. Occasionally, these gas molecules excreted by plants, known as volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, interact with variants of nitrous oxide. This can lead to ozone production, which can smell a bit like chlorine or the exhaust of a dryer vent. In addition to the release of gases contained within dying vegetation, 2 other effects contribute to the emotion-evoking scent that accompanies a northwest autumn breeze: decomposing plant matter and pollutants trapped at the ground levels during the fall months. The soil in most parts of the world is rich in Geotrichum candidum. I hope I'm saying that right. It's a fungus that causes rotting and decomposition of fruits and vegetables and dense plant matter. In fact, Geotrichum candidum has been sampled on all 7 continents. This is just one of many species that erodes away as deceased organisms, the chemical reactions of which contribute to the smell of fall. Moreover, when autumn rolls around and the polar vortex builds across the poles, the 3-dimensional profile of the atmosphere changes. It becomes structured in a very stable way. The ground cools off rapidly when the sun sets, radiating its energy upward into the atmosphere. A layer of warm air forms several hundred meters above the surface, trapping pollutants below. That's why you can sometimes smell Canadian wildfire smoke in the late summer and early fall, primarily from mid-August through late September. The position of the jet stream changes as well, sinking to lower latitudes and becoming more efficient at transporting airborne particulates across the northern tier of the nation. Sometimes you hear the expressions about smelling, where the air comes from. Though it may sound apocryphal, it is true. Air masses often carry with them their trademark scents. Those in the Midwest and Great Plains often recount a stormy day as smelling like a tornado. This may, in fact, be the result of a Gulf of Mexico air mass transported northward, dragging the scent of mangrove and tropical vegetation. Considering that fronts frequently travel at over 40 miles an hour, it makes sense. In essence, you are receiving the air from somewhere else before it can diffuse enough to rid itself of any odor. All told, the scent of fall is magical. Though it means winter is just around the corner, savor it. It's a time of rest and respite. Fall is a transitional period and the start of something new. So what did you guys think of this article? I've never been a big fan of pumpkin spice lattes, now or back when I could smell. I'm not even sure if pumpkin spice lattes were a thing back in the early 2000s or if that's a new phenomenon. But I think the thing that I miss the most about the smell of fall would be pumpkin pies with a big dollop of whipped cream on top, especially the pumpkin pie that you eat on Thanksgiving Day. I do think it's fascinating that fall does have a certain scent and that it's been proven scientifically. So a big shout out to Matthew, a thank you for allowing me to use his story on the podcast. Please make sure that you check out his Twitter handle. It's at Matthew Capucci, and it's spelled MATTHEWCAPPUCCI, so that you can follow him and read his other work. And as always, I'll include the link to this article in the episode description so you can find it and read it yourself. Our next story has a really interesting title. It's called Cinema Air Chemistry Linked to Film Ratings, and it was written by Rebecca Traeger for chemistryworld.com and was published on October 26, 2018, so literally like 4 days ago. So here's the story. After discovering in 2016 that movie audiences emit more volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, during stressful scenes, researchers from the Max Planck Institute for Chemistry in Germany have expanded on their work by developing a method that they claim can scientifically determine the appropriate age rating of films. We have measured hundreds of chemicals in the air during screenings of many different films, and we have a good database as to how the general public reacts to various types of movie scenes, explains group leader Jonathan Williams. We can see how the chemical composition in the cinema changes with different films that have different age ratings and classifications. In their latest research, the team analyzed data on more than 13,000 audience members of various ages during 135 screenings of 11 movies. They connected a mass spectrometer to the cinema's ventilation system to identify substances at the parts per trillion level, tracking changes in the air composition by taking measurements every 30 seconds. They then analyzed the concentrations of 60 compounds in the cinema air and came up with a model that compares the age classification of a certain film with the information they collected on the audience emissions of those chemicals. Such metrics can help to gauge the appropriate age rating of a movie in situations where that designation is under dispute, Williams and his team suggest. Currently, the age rating of movies is a subjective determination made by various entities in different countries, like the Motion Picture Association of America and the British Board of Film Classification. Isoprene spikes. If it is unclear why a particular movie got a certain age rating, we could at least use this method with a typical representative audience of different ages and see objectively if it deserves that rating, Williams tells Chemistry World. We could use objective, scientific information to show which age category we think the film should fall into. In that way, our methods could be used as a support mechanism. The technique could also be useful for the movie industry, as films are edited to be accessible and appropriate for the desired target audience, he adds. Williams's team has concluded that the levels of the compound isoprene released by audiences is by far the most accurate predictor of the age rating of a film. This correlation wasn't with the total amount of isoprene levels in the theater, but rather the speed and magnitude of sudden increases. During a particularly shocking scene, we would observe strong spikes in the isoprene signals. And then once the scene ended and the stress is over, then it goes back down, Williams recounts. These same peaks are reproducible across different audiences and from one day to another, he adds. Plants produce and emit isoprene naturally, especially during photosynthesis, and the compound appears to help protect leaves from environmental stresses. Humans also naturally make isoprene, and it tends to get stored in their muscles. Williams posits that when somebody jumps or squirms in their cinema seat, the isoprene goes quickly into the bloodstream and is vented out in the breath. The more movement, the more isoprene, he says. When you watch a scene that is uncomfortable, you tend to squirm empathically in your seat and twitch and nervously move, and the isoprene signal is more variable. George Preety, an organic chemist at the Monell Chemical Senses Center in Philadelphia, United States, suggests that the VOC data should be combined with other measurements, such as audience heart rates and self-reporting, before it can be used. This needs to be paired with other independent measures of stress to see if the chemistry results were actually caused by a stressful film or just from motion, Preety says. He notes, for example, that fidgeting could result from boredom and not necessarily either nervousness or stress. Williams agrees that collecting information on other stress indicators would enhance his research, noting that this would be a good way to improve the biological side of the study. What do you all think about this method of rating movies? I can't decide if I think it's really cool or if it's overly invasive, analyzing my body chemistry and all. I'm interested to see if this method of rating movies will be the wave of the future or just something that a few people focus on right now. So thank you to Rebecca for allowing me to read her article on the podcast. Please make sure that you check out her Twitter handle at RebeccaTraeger99, and it's spelled RebeccaTraeger99, so that you can follow her and check out her other work for chemistryworld.com. As always, I'll include the link to this article in the episode description. Let me know what you thought about today's episode. What topics would you like to see covered in the future? Do you know anyone with anosmia, including yourself, who would want to be on the podcast for an interview? If so, send them or yourself my way. You can email me at thesmellpodcast@gmail.com. You can also reach me on Twitter at thesmellpodcast. Don't forget to check out the Identifying Treatments for Taste and Smell Disorders conference website, and hopefully we can all meet each other at the conference coming up soon in November. As a reminder, it doesn't cost anything for you to go, it's free, but you do need to register ahead of time. And the website to do that is www.ittsd2018.org. And again, if you can only go for one day, Thursday's the day to go because they're going to focus on us, the patients. I'll make sure that I include the link in the episode description to the website so you can go and get yourself registered if you're interested. All right, thanks again for listening. Until next time, have a great day.